Hi, welcome back. I wanted to talk today about Pablo Picasso, one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. And I know you guys probably already know a ton about him, so I won't get into all that. But it's, safe to say that he pioneered artistic movements that continue to influence today's artwork. I love how creative he was and all that he contributed to the world of the arts. And I tend to feel like started trends that I'm not so crazy about. Like he started the trend to sort of leave the general public out of understanding art and the messages behind them. Um, and maybe there was always stuff like this happening in the art, like, oh, you're not in the know, so you don't know what this means, or you don't really have the background to understand the symbolism. But it really seemed to take off with Picasso. So during his time, there was this idea emerging called cultural capital, which means that there's a knowledge and skills and cultural awareness that allows individuals to appreciate and to participate in certain societal circles, right? So if you're not in the know, you're not in the know. But for Picasso, his art often required substantial cultural capital, right? To fully grasp his and to fully be aware of art history, to be familiar with avant-garde movements, and to be in the know, because if you didn't have any sort of classical education and you weren't very educated or you weren't very avant-garde, then you couldn't really appreciate his work because it was very intellectual and experimental. So everybody felt kind of special when they got it, right? So he was the first to do all kinds of things, but the people who really championed Picasso's work were those of the elite class. They were the ones that had all this quote unquote cultural capital, right? And they could decode the complexities of his work, but they're leaving the public out, and that's purposeful. Essentially, they're in their social bubble, their elite little social bubble, and it's an echo chamber, just like you see now, people talking about this stuff in social media, but they very much wanted to keep into their own echo chamber, and Picasso was very much catering to it, and he was making work for the elite because he wanted to be an elite. So it was just a sign of sophistication and class to know what Picasso was doing and what he was referring to with a lot of his new and experimental stuff. I think we can all see that it's still happening in contemporary art. Like this idea that you have to understand art today and you have to be sophisticated enough to understand it. Otherwise you don't get it, and you're not cool if you don't get it, is very much alive and well today. And the truth is, you do need cultural capital to understand art, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on which social circles you surround yourself with that you have the most invested knowledge in. So for instance, if you're into popular culture, then pop art is definitely going to make sense to you. And if you're not consuming popular culture and all the newest shows and the newest media or music, then you're not going to understand pop art the way others will who are in the know. And the same thing with folk art. If you don't live a very simple everyday life and you don't do the things that are conveyed or shown in folk art, then you're definitely not going to be in the know. But because the elite class today no longer has this classical education from the past, so now contemporary art reflects the elite lifestyle and the knowledge of its inner circles and their preferences. And I think you kind of understand that when you look at all the strange, very fetish type work coming from the art world recently, that all the stories coming from Hollywood in connection to that, then it starts to make sense to you that the entertainment industry and the elite within those circles have certain preferences, and then it all makes sense, right? But we don't really want to know and understand that art, I think, some of us. But even if it's not like all this weird stuff attached to the shadowy trends in contemporary art, contemporary art still makes the self the most prominent and important figure. So it's almost like the worship of self is very rampant, right, in culture today. So that's reflected also in contemporary art. And I don't think anybody would be able to deny that, because so much of it's how the one person feels, the one person experiences. And I'm not saying that's a necessarily bad thing. I just see that overall, you're not seeing that in much of art history. You're really seeing, you're not seeing this focus on self so much. I mean, we can get into like comparing this current contemporary art with other art movements of the past, but I think it's safe to say that, you know, that's very true, that we are a very narcissist society. But just think about it. Of course, we're going to have a hard time connecting and appreciating art in the museums today. They're not really talking to us. They're only talking about one person's specific experience, which is fine. But if it's not resonating with you and the public in general, there's nothing to hold on to as far as relatability, then it kind of falls flat. And then that's where I think contemporary art really fails. It just doesn't connect with the populace, but not that it always has to. It's just that when you don't have a way of relating to the artwork that's in front of you, then you're not going to find it very interesting. And that really kind of sums up why I have a complicated appreciation for Picasso's art. I mean, I really like his art, but I don't like the movement that came with it and the shadow that it casts on contemporary work of today. So just working on this video kind of helps me really understand why I would rather be considered a folk artist rather than a fine artist. I just never organized my thoughts until now to really think about that. But yeah, I always was uncomfortable with the idea of having to cater to the museums and feel very like, oh, I have to put all this conceptual stuff in it. And I don't mean that I don't want depth in my work. Like, I want meaning in it. I just don't necessarily think it has to be so elusive. So I hope you found this video helpful. And the next time you go to a museum, just remember to not feel bad if you're not getting it, like if you don't know what you're looking at. So my suggestion would actually be to find the things that attract you, find the art that you feel compelled to, and find out why that is attractive to you. Like, why do you like the certain pieces that, or the certain artists that you like? And they will help you appreciate, you know, art a little better, and not just kind of walking through and scanning stuff and saying, oh yeah, I got to see a Picasso or a Van Gogh or whatnot, but like understanding what that really means would be a good thing. Sometimes I actually don't know why I like the artists that I like, and I tend to shy away from taking my own advice about this only because there have been artists that I really like, or like actors that I really like, but then I find out about their personal life and it ruins it. It ruins their work for me. So I like watching a movie like with an actor that I just know too much about because of the paparazzi and all of the different entertainment things that people talk about, you know, and you're just like, oh, I don't really want to watch this guy on screen anymore. And it kind of taints your viewing experience. So, you know, just tread carefully. You never know. What these people are just real people. That could be a whole nother video, actually. But for now, that's all I got for you guys today. We'll see you next time.